Hey guys, welcome back. Well, I hope you enjoy this podcast with Jordan Keys. You know him as TWIL, This Week in Linux. Today's topic, Ubuntu phones. Yeah.
Hello and welcome back. Well, in case you are lost, this is the Total OS Today Technology channel. It's been a while since I've had a conversation with TWIL. You know him as Jordan Keys. TWIL, of course, stands for This Week in Linux. You can catch him here on YouTube. It's twil.tv. I believe the last time we spoke, Jordan, was a year ago, maybe more. I know you've been busy. First of all, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. Thanks for having me back again.
You're quite welcome. I'm glad to have you back. Okay, briefly, let's catch up. I was running Ubuntu 14.04. I switched to the latest Linux Mint. I had some issues with Kdenlive. I'm currently running Ubuntu Mate, the latest one, 15.04, and everything works just peachy. I'm quite happy. So that's what I'm using now. Now you're using, I believe you mentioned you're using a little bit of Mac and some Linux. Can you fill us in?
At this point, I'm actually using a little bit of everything. I've got several desktops here at home. So I've got a Windows 8 desktop. I've got an Ubuntu 15.04 desktop. I work out of the home now, so my work laptop is a MacBook Pro, and
Nice.
then all of my servers are Linux servers. So I've got an Ubuntu. Which one is it? I think it's an Ubuntu 14.10 server. I've got a SLES 12 server, several of those. Most of the company that I work for, most of the stuff they want to do is on SLES, so
Okay.
Enterprise.
Um,
So I sort of touch all the spectrum, between Windows, Mac, Linux, Android, iOS, Windows Phone. Yeah, if there's an OS out there, I'm probably touching it at this point. BSDs I don't actually touch.
Okay, well, this is total technology, right? But
Exactly.
between the Mac, the Linux side, and the Windows 8.1, is one necessarily easier or more reliable than the other, or not necessarily so?
From my point of view, it's really just more about whatever tools you feel like using. If the OS that you're using has the tools that you need on it, use it.
Okay.
As far as the Mac, the reason I've got that is because I went there and on day one they said, "Here's your Mac." I said, "Okay, cool."
Okay.
All the tools that I use for development, I mainly develop Ruby on Rails applications, and
Okay.
RubyMine, the editor I use, is available on Windows, Mac, Linux, so it doesn't really matter where I'm using it. When
Okay.
I worked for another company, I worked for Lexmark for about 3 years, and I was primarily Linux there, but I did some Windows work there. I did a little bit on the Mac there. So yeah, I've just been back and forth for the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay, so one OS or one desktop is not necessarily better than it. Just depends on what you're trying to do, basically.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. And as long as the tools you need are on the OS you're using, that's the most important thing as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about Ubuntu. There was a new announcement from Ubuntu, the next version, Jordan, the 15.10. Apparently, you will have a choice between Ubuntu Debian-based or Ubuntu Snappy-based, or just called Snappy version. Yeah, but this is something that was mentioned, I believe, a month or so ago. Apparently, with Snappy. The packages in Snappy, apparently from what I read, are going to be more secure, more stable, and less prone to breakages. You will still have a choice of downloading either the Debian version or the Snappy version. I'm not sure what this means long term, but I will say this. I'm all for anything that's completely stable. What I have noticed with Linux over the years, Jordan, is the core operating system may be just fine and stable. However, once I start downloading some of my favorite apps that I need, that's when potentially you can run into some sort of problems. Linux Mint Mate, the last version, Kdenlive I'm not sure, just would not function properly, so I gave up on the Linux Mint. I downloaded the latest Ubuntu Mate, and so far absolutely everything is working perfectly, and I'm quite happy. So we'll have to wait and see just how successful Ubuntu with the snappy packages. That's how successful that will be. I'm guessing, Jordan, that if they do indeed prove to be those packages prove to be more stable, that might be the next standard for packages, if there is such a word as standard in Linux, for the oncoming Ubuntu, especially probably starting with, I'm guessing Ubuntu 16.04. We may even see Mir and maybe Unity 8 in Ubuntu 16.04. But I'm not sure. How do you see it?
Well, actually, taking a step back there, I was about the Ubuntu Snappy stuff. Are you saying that's actually going to be coming to the consumer, to the desktop version as well? Because everything I've seen says that it is just for the Internet of Things, Internet connected things, and servers specifically.
Yes, the last thing that I read, you will be able to. I believe it's going to be called Snappy Desktop. No, wait, it's not. It's the Ubuntu Desktop. Oh, it's called.
I see it on Web Update now.
Snappy Personal. Right? Yes, Snappy Personal starting
we'll eventually
with 15.10.
Switch to Snappy Packages, huh?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I guess it makes sense to start with a server and then eventually move those things, server version being the more stable potentially, get it good and stable on the server and then give it to the consumer at the endpoint.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere that if you update an app or a package and there's a conflict, it will automatically roll back to the previous stable version. Which in theory sounds wonderful. We'll have to wait and see. In theory, it sounds good. In practice, will it actually work? That's wonderful. Yeah.
And from reading about it sounds like it says it's an evolution of the click packages, which is what they use on the Ubuntu phone. So the stuff I've done with the Ubuntu phone so far has been pretty easy to get things installed and uninstalled. I mean, it's a whole lot faster in my experience than using D packages.
Right.
So if they can do that same kind of stuff, make it, like they say, snappy on the desktop, might be worth a shot.
Yeah, I will definitely be testing when that comes out, if anything, just out of curiosity. Okay, you mentioned the Ubuntu phone. That's going to be the focus of this conversation. Let's see, Jordan, the first news of the proposed Ubuntu phone, wasn't that about a couple years ago where Canonical had a fundraiser? I believe Kickstarter or something like that, if I recall.
It was even before that.
Okay.
Yeah, at CES, let me just see, CES 2013, they gave a demonstration of the OS. So that was January 2013. Okay. And then later in the year, there was the Ubuntu Edge campaign. There was the whole Ubuntu on Android stuff that got discussed. And
the Edge, that's it, yes.
Forth. Yeah, and just finally, in February of this year, they've gotten around to, we have commercial partners, we have phones that are on the way, and now they finally started releasing phones running Ubuntu.
Yeah, if I recall, when that was first announced, it may have been on the Indiegogo, I can't remember, but I remember catching the news, and I believe they had a goal, Jordan, of about 30 million. Does that sound right? In 30 days or something like 30 million in 60 days. Maybe it was 60.
Yeah, 32 million, I think.
Okay.
It was an outrageous goal, but they got a lot closer than most people thought they would.
I think they passed 10 million, but there was no consumer or massive kind of advertising, and I remember commenting, I do believe, Jordan, that this is going to fail. This has no chance to wait because there's no advertising. And one of the comments, and I took a little bit of flack for it, maybe deservedly so, but one of the comments was, well, this is not intended for the masses. Yeah. And I think I replied, if it's not intended for the masses, why are they asking a massive 30 million?
Why are they asking the masses for that much money? Yeah.
Right, because that's a massive amount. Maybe not for Wall Street, but for consumer funding, that's quite a bit. So I thought that's going to fail. That was my prediction, and it did. But I also somewhat had a feeling, somewhat predicted that the story would not go away. Somewhere down the line, Canonical would find a more, humble way of finding partners to create and market, in reality, the first Ubuntu phones. Now, I believe you tested the first one, right?
Yeah, I've got it sitting here behind me, actually.
All right. I don't have one in my hand. I've just seen pictures. Tell me all about it.
Back in February, actually, let's just say back in October, November of last year, I got a message from Canonical saying, you're involved in the community. You've been talking about Linux stuff for years. We want to bring you out to London to get hands-on with this phone.
Okay.
So that kind of went by the wayside. I didn't think it was going to happen. January rolled around. They said, February, we're going to actually bring you out to London. I showed up. There were I think there were 30 or 40 people there total. And everybody that was there was given a phone. There were a few of us that were asked to unbox it on camera, and so that video just recently went up over on the I think it's on the Celebrate Ubuntu channel, where we got to open it up and look at it and get our first impressions of it on the camera there for them.
Okay.
And so far, my experience with it while I was in London, it was very fluid. I mean, for the hardware, because the hardware, the BQ Aquarius it was a relatively mid-range phone in terms of Android specs. But because it's not running Android, it's running Ubuntu.
Right.
It was a lot more fluid, a lot more smooth. It's a 3G only device when you're in a place that 3G works on it. In the States, 3G doesn't work on it. So I brought it back home, and Edge was about as good as I can do, and Edge is just not good.
No. Yeah. 3G, nah. Are they going to make a 4G phone?
Well, just recently I heard that the next Ubuntu phone, the Meizu MX, I can't remember which one specifically it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one is now releasing. They're gonna, I think in 2 days now. It depends on when this goes up, but May 20th, I think, is when they're actually gonna have them on sale with Ubuntu running on them.
Right.
And hopefully I'm going to be getting hands on one of those as well. So if there's a video that pops up on my channel about it, you'll know I've got one.
Right. All right. So you mentioned about it briefly. So you found it to be somewhat easy to use, fluid, enough apps to get you started. Would that be a fair assessment?
Enough apps to be dangerous, yeah. I'm such a long ingrained Google person that if I don't have the Google services that I need, I'm kind of up a creek. I did have the ability to use my Gmail. I could use Google Plus because there was a wrapper application that just wrapped up the web interface.
Okay.
But other things like Google Hangouts and YouTube, like actually digging in and using YouTube as a user, they just weren't there. So for longer term, in-depth usage, it wasn't quite ready for me. But for a lot of people, for the average everyday user, the people that just browse the web, they use their email, they want to play a few limited games, Facebook, things like that, it's going to be just fine. The biggest complaint I heard from most people was that it didn't have WhatsApp. And I've never used WhatsApp, so I'm not terribly familiar with it. But they kept suggesting use Telegram instead because it's an open source messaging service.
Yeah.
So if you're a Telegram user that came native on the phone, it works just fine. I am not either one. I use Hangouts.
Okay. So it sounds like roughly the two major drawbacks would be the lack of 4G and not enough of the popular apps for the masses. That sounds about right.
Right, and that'll just be that'll come with time if their companies are interested in investing in it and developing. It's supposedly, it's pretty simple to develop for Ubuntu Phone. I did a little bit of development work. I helped out on the reminders application, so I got some experience and got hands on with it. And as a software developer, it's not that difficult to jump in and do it. If you know C++, it's incrementally easier to do more complicated stuff. But if you don't, you can just do the QML stuff, and that is, it's very, very simple to get involved. Like they were talking about, you can set up a scope as a non-programmer. You can make a new scope for your phone in about 5 minutes.
Okay, right. What exactly is a scope?
Best way to describe a scope is sort of an aggregator of data. You can either pull a bunch of data from one source, like you could bring in a bunch of YouTube videos, or you can bring together a large collection from a bunch of different places, like a video scope that would pull in from YouTube and Vimeo and Lip TV and wherever else. So, you can have the dedicated branded ones like the Weather Channel has a scope dedicated to it where it's all about weather information that can be defined by your location or by a location that you choose, or you could have a books scope that pulls from your local books and it pulls from online book sources. So it's sort of the best of both worlds there. You can either have all dedicated or a bunch of different things all aggregated together.
Sounds kind of useful. Actually, the more that I think about it.
It can be, except it is very limited at the same time, because while you're putting all the stuff together, you're pulling it all together, you're wrapping it up. If you want to interact with any of it, at this point, when you click on something, it inevitably takes you out to the browser. So you're in the scope, all immersed in it, you click on something, and you're in the browser. So you can't actually do anything from the scopes. You couldn't last time I used it.
Okay. So, but as far as, we'll say, the looks, the screen, the functionality, battery life, you would say it's a good first start?
Yeah, the battery life, it could definitely be better, but the 1 day, I had about a day and a half of actually being able to use it while I was in London on 3G, and battery life of the BQ Aquarius survived. I went out and toured London with another guy from the Insiders group. His name was Sujapan, and we circled London. We walked about 12 miles in a day, taking photos, taking videos, using the GPS, using the web browsing and everything, because we had they gave us a SIM while we were there to use. And I mean, I thoroughly hammered that device. And after about 5 or 6 hours, I was down to about 50% use.
Okay.
So it would have lasted the full day, but at that 5 hour time period, I went back to the hotel room and charged it while.
Sound quality good?
The sound quality and phone calls, I haven't really tested all that much. It was okay. The sound quality in videos, it's if I remember right, it's all piping out of one end, so sort of to each their own. I prefer front-facing speakers, and this didn't have it. Most devices don't now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Sounded okay, though.
I have the Galaxy 4. I'm going to get the 6 here probably in a couple of months. I've listened to the speakers on I believe the HTC with the front speakers at the bottom. I think it's better that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you're watching videos or movies or YouTube. Yeah.
However, I do have the S6 sitting next to me, and its speakers are not great, but the camera makes up for it, in my opinion.
Okay.
I'm the type of person that, I make YouTube videos. That's something that I do. So having a camera like that, having a 4K capable camera, or one that'll do 1080p 60, or even 1080p with image stabilization built in.
Sure.
Yeah, that's the flexibility I need. Very high quality pictures, very good in low light. I'm hopefully going to be getting hands-on with the G4 here in the next few weeks, so maybe I'll be able to compare the two. That would be nice. The LG G4.
Yeah, cool. Just a couple things. The price on the Ubuntu phone is roughly a couple $100 US, comparable, something like that. You
mean for the Ubuntu phone?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be available in the US, but it was I think it was 169 euros, so it's almost $200 US.
Well, the reason why I asked, because I believe I read a rumor that the Ubuntu phone is coming to the U.S. Someone from Canonical kind of hinted, I won't mention any names, that it may be coming sometime this summer. I don't know the specs or what it'll be called. If that's true, I think that's fantastic. It'll give consumers like us a choice.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the big things that they were talking about with the BQ phone, the Aquarius, one of the things we're going to be doing with it was when you go into a store to pick it up, if you were buying it in a retail store, you'd have to take a test before you could buy it. They had a little quiz on the device that would give you a quick intro to how to use the device, and then say, now if you wanted to do this, how would you do it? So it would sort of help you overcome that initial fear of, how do I use my device? How do I interact? Where can I get apps? How do I do this? Because so many people will just go in, I just need a phone, I don't care what it does, and then get home and, wait a minute, this is a what? What's an Ubuntu? And then you end up having to return it, and it's just a waste of time, and it's a waste of money for everybody.
It sounds unusual, but for something that's completely new, Jordan, maybe that sounds logical.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, but I mean, there are going to be people that'll be turned away by that concept, but at the same time, there's going to be people that are intrigued by it. Wait, I have to actually pass a test to get this?
It's only a phone, right?
Exactly.
It's not my college exam to be a lawyer, right? Or my, like the bar exam or whatever, but yeah.
Well, it's like joining a member of the elite. If I pass the test, I'm in.
Yeah, I'm in. I'm the Ubuntu elite, right? Sounds so mysterious, like elitist, but anyway. If if the Ubuntu phone truly is coming to the States, it like I said, it must have 4G. 3G just is horrible around here in Ohio, at least for me. It must have 4G, and at least it must have a few more choice of apps. If they can pull that off for about $200, I think the future for the Ubuntu phone is probably going to be bright. Now, it may take some time.
Did you hear about the Asus ZenFone 2? They just had the event today.
No, I didn't hear that. No.
The low end version of it, I say low end in air quotes there, it's $199.
Okay.
It's got an Intel processor, 2 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of storage, so it's pretty well. It's it's high middle of the pack right now.
Yeah, comparable to something else what you would get. Sure, yeah.
Exactly. And from what I've heard, it's got a really nice camera built in as well, and it runs Android. The higher end version, though, which has 4 gigs of RAM, a faster processor, and 64 gigs of storage, is $299.
Sounds reasonable.
If you're looking for less than $300, you've got a phone that is really, really nice, and hopefully I'm going to be getting hands-on with that one pretty soon as well.
Nice. I have to tell you, my number one beef with smartphones is battery life. It's awful. Look, I'm always doing so. I check 90% of my messages on my phone, like at home or at a restaurant or at the gas station. Watching, YouTube videos, even watching like a few movies here and there, and the battery life, and you can attest to this, it just drains more than I want it to. Mm-hmm. If I was just checking messages only and not calling people, it would probably be okay. But in the future, if there's one piece of technology that has to improve, it's got to be battery life. It's just annoying. So, but that's my 2 cents on that. So.
And you were talking about going to the Galaxy S6 sometime in the future.
Yeah.
If you're planning to do that, you're going to have problems.
Really?
Because it's got a 2600 milliamp hour battery, but that doesn't last very long.
Oh, yeah, the battery, yeah. And I believe it's sealed. You can't get a bigger battery, can you?
Correct. You can, however, get an external battery case, but then you take this device that's really svelte and really sleek, and you put a battery case on it.
Yeah.
However, the S6 does support both wireless charging standards that are out right now, and it does do quick charging. So you can kind of mitigate some of that if you've got chargers wherever you go. For me, though, it does last through the day just barely. Like when I'm using a heavy usage day, I'm at like 10% at the end of the day.
Well, I guess the fast charging part, I guess, I guess that's more livable. With that, I still would prefer a nice beefier fuel tank, as it were, for the phone. But what are you going to do if that's the best they can do?
And there are some companies that are coming out with these the battery packs that have quick charge built into them, so you could get one of those and stick it in your backpack or stick it in your car.
Right.
And then, charge up for 15 or 20 minutes and you're back up to 60 or 80%, and that'll last you a little while longer.
That's not bad. Yeah.
It's survivable.
So besides the battery, you are pretty much impressed with the Galaxy 6, you would say?
Yeah, aside from the battery, I would go as far as to say I would go out and pay $700 for this phone today if I were looking to buy a new phone.
Okay.
Like whenever the first day I pulled this phone out of the box when Verizon sent it out to me to test, I took it out back and I started recording videos with it. And one of the first things I said to it was, I am seriously going to end up spending $700 on it.
Okay.
Luckily, I'm not doing that now because I don't really need it. I've talked myself down, as it were. But I mean, the camera on it is just that impressive.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have I have to wait for my upgrade from Sprint here. I believe July 1st. I think I'll just get not the Edge, just a regular one. I believe it's just $200 for the non-Edge Galaxy, and I think that'll be fine for me. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I have outgrown my Galaxy 4. It's been reliable, but it's time to move on. So. Well, Jordan, the Ubuntu phone, I'm going to make a prediction. I think it at least has a chance of selling here in the States. Unlike the crowdfunding thing they tried a few years ago, which I had no faith in. It was bad timing. But the timing is right now, in my opinion, for the Ubuntu phone to succeed. I know it's done. Yeah.
Like you were saying earlier, I think I was saying at the time even that the crowdfunding campaign, it was more a marketing ploy. It was let's get the name out there. Let's let them know that this is something that we're interested in doing, and just see if any of the manufacturers come back to us and offer to do it themselves. And luckily, they did have a couple that eventually bit on it.
Makes sense. Sure. Yeah. And it didn't take that long at all, really. I mean,
exactly.
When you
in the grand
it,
scheme
yeah.
of things, yeah, they've gone from not having an OS on a phone to having phones that are in distribution now, and it's just been a couple of years.
Right. Well, I wish Canonical well. I thoroughly enjoy using the various Ubuntu-based Linux systems. I have the Mate version of Ubuntu here, which I just had a thought. With Ubuntu Mate, do we really need Linux Mint Cinnamon? It's just a thought, but I have Ubuntu Mate on this. On my two older dual-core laptops, I actually have Ubuntu 14.04 and Linux Mint Mate on the other one, just something to play around with and test apps and stuff like that. So as far as Canonical and Ubuntu, I think they got something right with the Ubuntu phone. And of course, with the desktop, with this Ubuntu Snappy packaging thing going on here, I think in theory it sounds pretty good, so I'm looking forward to that. So yeah, definitely check that out. Jordan, this was fun. Let's do it again, and let's not wait a year. Technology just moves too fast. There's always something to really talk about, and maybe we can catch up. Maybe about a month or so when you test those new products. Maybe we can talk about that. And let me know what you think about that. So.
Yeah, sounds good.
Terrific. All right. Well, this concludes this one. I think we'll end it here in case we get any more lightning here. It's been storming off and on all day, so it might be best to end it now versus cutting it off rather abruptly. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Please check out TWIL.tv here on YouTube, right? Or
yes.
Just Jordan Keys. Okay, TWIL.tv.
If you just go to the website TWIL.tv, that redirects to my YouTube channel.
Wonderful. So please check that out. Don't forget to subscribe to both myself and Jordan, TWIL.tv if you have not. A couple of reminders. Don't forget to vote this month for your favorite May YouTuber. It does not necessarily have to be about technology. Back in March, you guys alerted me to a terrific singer-songwriter. Her name is Stephanie Forian. Jordan, check her out. She's somewhat new, at least to me. She's fantastic. Check her out, Stephanie Forian. She writes all her own stuff, and I believe she's performing in Germany. So check that out. And the last thing, I do not have a date yet for the live event, the UK Show podcast. If you guys would like to help sponsor that show, it would be appreciated. That's it. We are done. So thanks again, Jordan. And let's talk again soon. And as always, we will catch all of you sometime in the future. Ciao.